There were a lot of players with some bad performances in week 4. So for week 5, these are our buy low trade target candidates. And it started off Amari Cooper for the Cleveland Browns, an elite wide receiver, obviously the one on that team. And we all know why he had the bad game. DTR threw for 121 yards, which that's not going to cut it at an NFL level to get volume for any receiver. So obviously we think Deshaun Watson will come back soon. And when he's there, Amari Cooper's been pretty good for fantasy. He's really paid off his 4th to 5th round draft price. He's still probably a top 12 to 15 wide receiver. And so if you're looking to pick one up on the cheap, I think Amari Cooper is a really good target off of a really bad game if the manager is panicking over a bad performance.
Yep. Next up, that's going to lead us into Travis Etienne. So he averages over 20 touches a game, which is an elite usage in today's age for running backs. You don't see that very often. He has 4 targets per game, which is up from last year. Last year, he averaged 2.5, so getting up to 4 is a pretty significant increase. And, the offense should improve. It makes no sense why they are as bad as they are right now. Last year, they were very successful towards the end of the year, and they got better this offseason. So you would think, logically, that they would perform better. So I don't think they will stay this poor on offense the whole season. I think they will figure it out. Doug Peterson is a smart offensive-minded coach. So I would trade for Travis Etienne. This is probably the cheapest that he's going to be for this season, so I would try to scoop him up while you can.
Yeah, we just did a trade in one league where we moved some pieces, but we tried to upgrade Brian Robinson, and we threw in some other pieces to sweeten the deal, but we got Etienne, and I like him. He's a top 5 as far as volume this year so far. He is the guy on what should be a good offense and should have enough scoring opportunities for him. Tank Bigsby really, so far, has not had a role. Like, he's gotten off to an extremely slow start. They're easing him in so slowly that he's not even – I'm not worried about him for this year. Mm-hmm. All right. Another buy low is Chris Olave. Should be an elite receiver. He has elite talent, and we've known that since his rookie year. We love these second-year wide receivers to take off, and so that's why I targeted him a lot in the 3rd round. But he's had a pretty mediocre start, just haven't come down with a touchdown. His first 3 weeks were really good, though, as far as target share. So the underlying metrics are there, and he looks good on the field. And we know that Derek Carr should be good enough to get him the ball. He did good with Andy Dalton. I'm pretty sure he can do good with Derek Carr. The only thing is the injury situation with Derek Carr. If he continues to suffer from this AC joint, which he really just sucked in week 4. He threw for 127 yards. If he's the quarterback with that injury, and that continues to limit him, which I don't see why they would considering how bad they lost, then that's something to monitor for sure. But they do have a backup quarterback in Jameis Winston who can get the ball to receivers. So that's what's making me willing to buy low, is because no matter who they put in at quarterback, as long as they're healthy, Chris Olave should feast.
Yep. Next up is going to be Jakobi Meyers. Aiden O'Connell started this game. Jimmy G was out due to concussion. In the 2 games that Jimmy G started and finished, Jakobi had 10 and 12 targets, which is an elite target per game. With Aiden, I think he only had 4, maybe 5 targets, which is significantly worse. It's less than half. So I think Jakobi Meyers will rebound pretty significantly once Jimmy G comes back. So, Jakobi Meyers isn't this big-name receiver, so a lot of players may see, okay, he had a bad game, and then he missed that game with concussion. So that's 2 out of 4 weeks have been pretty bad. So you might be able to scoop him up on the cheap. I do think Jakobi Meyers, when Jimmy G is healthy, is around a top 24 receiver. Receiver is pretty deep this year, so, between the 24 and 30 range are all pretty similar, but I think he can be a top 24 receiver in PPR.
Yeah, in PPR, he's a really good just flex play. Like, if he just sits in your flex and just gets you 15 points, you love that. And when Jimmy G plays, he should be good. In the first 3 weeks, Jimmy Garoppolo only threw 6 passes to receivers not named Jakobi Meyers or Devontae Adams, which means that he's highly targeting the 2 guys, and there's a lot of concentration of targets, which is something we talk about a little bit as really good for fantasy, is when a quarterback looks at certain options, and Garoppolo has done this historically too, where he really likes certain guys and targets them a lot. So Jakobi Meyers, he likes. Not only that, there's a bit of an upside case with Jakobi Myers. Obviously, if Devontae Adams got hurt, but also he's like there's rumors of him being traded. He's not happy with the Raiders organization in general. And so, although I see that as unlikely, the fact that that's there just makes me like trading for him just a little bit more. All right, next up, we got Christian Watson, who did come down with a touchdown, so not necessarily a buy low, but didn't play the first 3 weeks, and then he gets about 10 points in week 4. The reason you might be able to buy low is because 10 points is not amazing, and he was drafted to be pretty good in fantasy this year. Second-year receivers, we like those breakout potentials, and I still buy into the breakout potential for Christian Watson, especially because the offense is doing, what we hoped it would, really. I mean, it's not an amazing season so far from Jordan Love, but he's looked competent, and I think that's really what you can ask for. And he's able to get the ball to Romeo Doubs so far, who's been a pretty good receiver. But I think Christian Watson still takes over that number 1 role, and he only got 2 catches last week, but we knew he was going to be on a pitch count. So if the manager is looking at his only 2 catches and panics a little bit on his usage, not knowing that he was supposed to be on a pitch count this week, then I'm definitely trying to scoop him up on the cheap, knowing that his role should increase, and I believe in the talent and the touchdown capabilities of Christian Watson.
Yep. Next up is going to be Jordan Addison. He had a very good weeks 1 and 2, and then he just had a goose egg. Well, nothing makes fantasy managers more willing to trade a player than when they goose in their lineup. It pisses them off. So we've seen a big increase in snaps. The first 2 weeks, he got around 38 to 42%. In the past 2 weeks, he's above 50%, around the 55%, which is nice to see as a rookie, coming along. Hopefully, he'll be in that 60 to 70% range soon. Hopefully, he will supplant KJ Osborne in the 2 receiver sets, which I could see happening pretty soon. I wouldn't make a big deal about the goose egg this game. The Vikings only ran 44 plays, which dating back to 2020 has only happened 4 times. It's only happened 4 times where a team's only run 44 plays in a game, and they only threw 19 passes. If you look at the first 3 games, they threw the ball over 40 times each game. So them going from 40 passes a game all the way down to 19, that's not going to stick. And so I am betting on the talent of Jordan Addison plus this offense. The defense is not very good. They're going to give up a lot of points. This offense is going to have to score and throw a lot. So I think this is probably the lowest you'll be able to buy Jordan Addison all year. And I would buy now and hope for a future breakout that I think he's capable of.
I think you can get him really cheap compared to the other options we've talked about so far. Like you said, a 0 or a 1 or like something like that, you can lose a game based off that. And if that happened, managers really aren't going to want to stick with that. I believe that he's a more talented player than KJ Osborne, and it's not really close. So I'm sure that the Vikings will see that. Obviously, they haven't done super well so far on the year as well as they had hoped. So I'm guessing that some changes are coming, and Jordan Addison definitely needs to see the ball more than that. All right. Next up, Jaylen Waddle, a guy that this is the 3rd week we're talking about him because, again, he does not come down with the touchdown, with the big play that we know he's capable of. Obviously an elite offense, and last week it was really a tale of the Bills just kind of shutting down the Dolphins, and I don't think that many teams are capable of doing that. So although they will have to play the Bills again, most of their opponents probably aren't going to be able to stop this insane offense that the Dolphins have put together. Jaylen Waddle, if you go back to last year in his second year, he was extremely explosive, and there's ups and downs to that, and we continue to say that I think there's going to be huge games in the works for Jaylen Waddle. He did have a touchdown that was called back on an illegal man downfield, and that would have made him look like an amazing play this week. So he just, if that wasn't called back on a penalty, which wasn't his fault, obviously, then he has a good week. I think there's a lot of good weeks to come, and 4 mediocre games in a row. Well, one he missed, but 3 mediocre games. I think you can actually buy him at this point.
Yep. All right, next up is going to be Aaron Jones. We kind of had low expectations for him this week. This was his first game back due to a hamstring injury, and he played against the Detroit Lions, which over the past 13, 14 games have been a pretty strong run defense, at least for fantasy, only giving up over 10 points to one running back in fantasy over the last 13 games. So it's not a great matchup. He only saw about 35% of the snaps, which was down from his week 1 rate. Week 1, he got about 50%, right about 50%. So he is down pretty significantly from that. I think some of that was, being on a pitch count due to the hamstring injury, and some of that was them getting boat raced by the Lions for the majority of it. Why put him out there coming back from injury in a game that you're probably not going to win? So I think going forward, he will get back up to about that 50% snap rate. He is very involved in the passing game. And you can see that Jordan Love kind of missed him in that Lions game in the passing game. They didn't really have many short check down options. A.J. Dillon is not a threat to Aaron Jones. A.J. Dillon had his chance. Aaron Jones missed 2 games, and A.J. Dillon did literally nothing. So I'm not worried about A.J. Dillon taking any significant work from Aaron Jones. And this is probably the cheapest he will be all year, coming off 2 missed games, and then he finally plays and he gets you, 1.5 points, which is very, very bad. So managers, like we said earlier with Jordan Addison, they'll probably freak out because he got you 1 point. He probably cost you your matchup. So I would send some offers for him right now.
Yeah, and we saw how explosive he was in week 1 and proved that, even if they rotate in A.J. Dillon, that he can still get a lot of fantasy points. Obviously, like you said, using the passing game a lot, which we love, especially if you're in a PPR league. I think Aaron Jones is a really good running back in that situation. And if anybody's worried about the injury or anything like that, I'm trying to scoop low because I know running back is a position that we definitely need right now with all these injuries and running backs not working out as the game moves more towards passing. Another running back that you could buy super low and probably the easiest to purchase right now would be Jahmyr Gibbs. If you want to trade for Jahmyr Gibbs, you can probably do it. And for that reason, I'm not sending a ton. Obviously, there is no guarantee that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to become an elite option. They love David Montgomery, and David Montgomery is the goal line back and will continue to be, and he's a good player. That said, Jahmyr Gibbs obviously drafted with the 12th pick this year, and being a rookie, there's still a ton of upside. He's using the passing game. He should be able to still get a decent workload with David Montgomery in there, and he hasn't killed you for fantasy so far. Like, he gets you 10 points a game. That doesn't really kill you, but a player who can have that kind of, average output this early into their rookie year still sees a lot of upside in their second half of the year, like a second half of the year breakout, as we typically see rookie running backs do and rookie players in general. And running backs in particular are pretty good at that. I think that it's worth trading for because you get some sort of baseline with what he's done now, and the Lions offense being really good and him being such a high draft capital pick that they love. I still think that I'm going to buy really low off of what has been an extremely disappointing start for like a 3rd round pick. All right, that does it for our buy lows for week 5. If you guys enjoyed the content, consider subscribing. Thank you guys for helping us hit 600 subscribers. I would appreciate it if you could help us on the road to 1,000. And thank you guys for tuning in. We've been the Fantasy Bros, and we're out.